majority of the first blue wash is dry. Just a couple of small areas down in some of the deeper creases in the armour that haven't quite dried fully yet. But that doesn't matter now. What we're going to do is move on and do our second wash, which is going to be a Bata black wash. One of the Citadel washes, the Bata black there. Again, this is just going to be quite a liberal coat, maybe not as heavy as the blue. We'll probably water this down just a little bit more. What we'll do is we'll shake that up a little bit, get some into the cap. We'll open it up, and same process as before, but we're going to water it down a little bit more to more focus on getting the black wash into the creases of the armour more than actually colouring the model itself. So if we dip in to the water and dip into the cap, just add a little bit more there, and we'll start again. We'll just start around the back and work our way around to the front. So once again, just applying the wash fairly liberally. We try to keep the model a little bit more level so that the wash doesn't all run to one side. And we run it down the legs, down to the feet. And back up to the other leg, underneath the feet. Shoulder pad. Try to keep it all in focus there. Down over the claw. Front details there. Just making sure we're covering as much of the model as possible again. Turn the front over the legs. Down the front of the shin. Paying particular focus to the creases in the armour. Anywhere there should be darker shading. Particularly around the front, the body there as well. Now this can look a little messy when it's just put down, but as you've seen with the blue wash, once it's all settled, it should shade the model quite nicely. And like I said, we're not putting it on as heavy as the blue wash, so that it's going to have a better opportunity to actually seep in to the creases along the armour and help it actually shade the model a bit better. And you can see there it's pulling around the top as we've been orientating the model. That's fine. We can change that. Just make sure it's as liberal as possible there. So around the insides of the claws, and make sure we're getting in those vents and everything there nicely. Put a bit of a heavier wash in there. Underneath that claw and around the elbow. inside of the other side of the claw as well there. So just working it into the creases in the armour, getting as much in as possible. Around the feet there as well. So if we stand the model up a bit more level, and as it's level or more level, we'll just try and even that wash out. So that it's not pulling in anywhere we don't want it to. We'll just try and correct anything where it's pulling badly. But it's not too bad, it's sitting quite nicely. And that should do it for the black wash. And when that's dry, we then have a bit of dry brushing to do. So we'll let this dry, we'll clean our brushes off, go get yourself a cup of tea if you're following along, and when we get back, we'll start into our dry brushing. So now that our second wash is done, you can see under close cam how it's all looking now. It's nice and dark, very gritty looking, like I've been trying to get to. So with that stage done, the next step along is going to be to dry brush this thing to sort of highlight the armour a little bit and sort of bring it back from the very deep dark blue that it already is. So what we need to do, wherever I've set it, we need to bring back in our special mix of the base colour that we made, the sort of more grey blue mix that we made earlier. And what we're going to do now is we're going to dry brush it. So we're going to take this nice large soft brush, brand new from the shop, and we're going to start dry brushing with it. Now the trick to dry brushing is to get as much paint off of the brush as possible once you dip it into the paint pot. So what we need to do is just open the tub, just dab the tips of the bristles in, like so. If I move the model out of the way, I'll show you how much paint we're going to need. So at the minute, that's too much. So if we wipe away, wipe away, wipe away, wipe away, wipe away, to get an almost sort of powdery texture there to the paint. See, a very light, takes quite a lot of brushing to actually put paint down. Something along those lines. So now, with most of the paint being off the brush, if we bring our model back in and try and get it into a place where we can see it, like so, and we just, with light actions on the hand, we start to highlight the model. And you can already see the highlights in the corners of the armour there. And if we just go around the front, large passes with the brush, just multiple large passes with the brush, which will start to highlight it, as you can see, starting to bring out the original blue, starting to bring it back a little bit. We'll go along the back here, might be a better place to demonstrate. And this should just highlight the model nice and subtly. You can see it's starting to bring it back. It's just starting to take those panel lines, the edges of the panel lines, and just starting to do a little bit of a highlight around them, as you can see there. So that'll come up quite nicely as we put more on. So we'll just continue with that for a while to get a good highlight built up. And you see, we'll just do it down the back, across the legs, anywhere where there's joints of the armour, anything that's jutting out a bit further than any other details, these are the areas you want to focus on when you're adding a highlight to actually make it look as if there's light catching the armor, catching the model in certain places. So, work it down, right down the legs, like so. So that's not too bad there. It's starting to bring back the original base color, that original blue that we had. And we just continue with this a little bit more, just making sure that there's enough paint off of the brush before we continue, so that we're not putting too much paint down onto the model. And you can see how it picks out the details along the edges of the panel lines, how it's picking out the highlighted crease on the armor of the elbow there, and how it's just adding a little bit of highlighting just around those parts. Now if we try and get that into a better place, and we'll just continue on around there. Like so. You generally want to pick out highlights like that, you want to dry brush at a 90-degree angle to the panel line that you're wanting to highlight. So say this top panel, you want to be going from left to right on it. If it was a vertical line, like on the back of the armor panel here, you want to be doing a vertical stroke, like so. So we just add a little bit more around the back there, over the top. Just around the arms. You see this being a new brush, that a few bristles are starting to fall off. Don't worry about that. When you're dry brushing, these aren't going to stick to the model too much, so it's not that big a deal. But brushes that are used for dry brushing generally don't seem to last very long. So that's something to bear in mind, is to not go over the top on your budget when you're looking for a brush to do some dry brushing with. There's a bit too much paint on that. And we don't want to bring it right back to the original colour too much. That would detract a lot from the original washes and the original effects that we've been trying to gain. So if we start to go over the front, over the knees, just picking out areas that would be getting a lot of light. So all over the front. Which has given us a nice subtle highlight to the model. As you can see, the knee pads are starting to show up a bit more, especially this front one, which is jutting out a little bit further than the other one. If we want to add a wee bit more to the top of that leg, just to catch that panel, that armoured plate there on this hip, you can just do that. And add a little bit more to that wolf claw on this arm, just to catch as much of the details as we can as we're passing over it with the brush. Now you can take as long on this as you want. You can go as far or as short as you want with the brush as well. You can see now that is starting to turn out pretty well, and I think that will actually do for that dry brush, and I'll maybe do a little bit more along the top of the armor there. So we'll rinse this brush off, and then to accent, or to add a little bit more detail, accent some of the panel lines, what we'll then take is this sort of angular narrow brush, a very thin brush as you can see. What we'll do is we'll dip it in to our blue, just very slightly, and what we'll do is, being very careful now at this point, we can now accent and add a bit stronger highlight to the corner of the panels. So along the top here, this will just add a bit more solid color, more solid color to just a few of these little panel areas, just to show off a little bit more of certain details. Particularly trying to focus on higher detail, stuff that's jutting out a lot further. So the top of this lens system, this little light and lens system, if we just add some lines, just hard lines to the top of that, like so. We'll be very careful picking out our paint so we're not putting too much onto the brush, and we try just to do a little segment of that top line. Now it's a little bit too much paint on there, but that shouldn't worry us too much. And if we can get maybe along his collar, along the front, like so, we'll just add a little bit. That's a bit too much again, but not to worry. There's ways and means of tidying that up if we wish. We may not bother actually, but and also on this panel line here, just at his hip, just that, the edge of that panel. Again, trying not to put too much down, but something like that. And if we want, we can go along that. And if we want to highlight the ones on the other side to sort of bring them a bit closer in line with the detail on the other one, just add a line there, and to highlight the very tip of that other hip armor plate there, like so. So that brings up a little bit more detail. So with that done, we're going to clean the brush off, make sure that's okay. And we're done with the blue for now. We have a suitably blue hand, as you can see. We'll wash that off later. We'll wash that the next time we need to stop for something. So the next step along now, we're going to add some, let me see, what would be a good next step? We're going to do some red details and possibly add some black as well. So the red, let me see, the red's going to be on the little shield there on his shoulder. And what we're going to do with it is use some Citadel Games Workshop Red Gore, as you can see 6105. So we're going to take a very small brush this time. We're going to do a 40, which is a very fine tip. And we're going to dip, and just swirl, get a bit of paint from our palette onto the brush. You can see a fair amount. And what we need to do now, if I can show you without having to break my arm to do it, is we're just going to add red into the inside of this shield. Now this will take a couple of coats, but the initial coat shouldn't be that bad. We put it on a little bit thicker. We may only need a couple of coats for this. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to take some black. This is Vahielo model color 70950 black. Now this is for adding the black to this shoulder pad, and this shoulder pad's going to be black, and then it's going to have a red stripe on it to have some symbols on it to denote being a wolf guard, that sort of thing. A little bit of personal heraldry. We'll decide on that in a minute or two. So what size of brush we're going to take this time is a 30, which is slightly bigger than the one we used before. Once again, just swirl it around in the palette a little bit, get a bit of moisture onto the black. And this paint should be absolutely perfect for one coat, but we'll probably need the black on a few other details as well. So if I can get this into a position where we can get it nice and focused, that should be okay. Then we'll just start to paint over this shoulder pad. And then at a later stage, we'll come along and we'll just highlight the edges of the panel again. Except using a grey this time instead of the blue colour. So if we want to add a bit more water to that, just to thin it down, because the yellow colours go on pretty thin without needing more than one coat, and they are very good paints in general. So we just paint down to the edges of the shoulder pad. Don't worry about painting over these details, and what we're going to do is actually paint those details separately later, those two little pieces off the edge of the shoulder pad. We can turn them around like so, and we'll get the rest of the paint down around there. And down in behind the shield. And if we flip them around, we'll just finish off the back of the panel. Getting as tight to the edge as we can, we'll just add a bit more water to our brush, just to thin it down a little bit more. And just a few little brush strokes, just to tidy that up. So while that's drying, we have a few more details that we need to add black paint to. The power cable here on each of the wolf claws we're going to paint black, and then we're going to overbrush them with some silver just to highlight them a bit. And then we'll turn the model around so we can see the underside of that first cable that we did. And we'll just tidy that up as well. And same for the other cable. Spin it all around, and then we can see the underside of the other cable there. Not very well, but it's there. That'll do. Okay, so with those done, we're also going to paint the inside of the knee joints here as well, and we're going to need a little bit more water on the brush this time to water that black down a bit more. And we're just going to add it into the back of the knee joints. As you can see, we're starting to add really nice contrast between the blues and the blacks, which is really starting to add the detail that we want and the nice grittiness that we've been looking for. And that other knee joint will need a little bit more water in its paint mix, making it almost a sort of a paint wash rather than just a all-out coat of paint. So we need to be rather gentle at this point. Try and get it in there without too much hassle. Now we did touch the sides of the leg armour a little, but that should be okay once that's dried. So around the front we have some more sort of armour joint areas that we need to have a look at. And same again with just the watered down black. We just need to add it in there, the top of the legs. Just get a little run down that panel line. And same on the other side. Just touch that there. And if I dip my tiny brush into some water, just spread that out of the way. Hopefully that should tidy up alright. So at this point there's not really much visible in the arms there. There's a tiny little piece up in the elbow joint. We'll see if we can't get that as well. It should be okay. And we can't really see the other elbow joint. So we'll have a look at continuing this one round to the proper elbow joint there. Again, being as careful as possible, just to reach the joint, like so. So that's not too bad. So let me see if we have anything else to do there. I don't think we do. So with the black complete, we'll just wash the brush down. At the same time here, we're going to take our small 4-0 brush once again, and we're going to add the second coat of red to the shield. Making it a little thinner this time. And just gently wiping it across that shield, like so. So that should do. That'll be ready for its a lighter red highlight once that layer has dried. And we have a lot of other details to get through while all this is drying. So we're going to take our bleached bone next, which is 6117. You can see there. And we have some bone colored details that we're going to add now. So we have a tiny little sort of skull detail on one of the shoulder pads, as well as a tooth that we're going to do in bleach bone. Round the front we don't have anything there, and on this shoulder pad we have the crux terminatus, which has got a nice wolf skull on it. So what we need to do is select the brush that we're going to use. We're going to use the 3-0 again, and we'll start on the crux terminatus and then start applying it to this shoulder pad. So we want to put it on relatively thickly, relatively heavily. We're trying to paint as quickly as possible, but at the same time as accurately as possible. So the more perfectionists among you may wish to do this in stages, may wish to do this in multiple layers, which is absolutely fine. I'm certainly not here to tell experienced painters how to paint. We're here to demonstrate quick ways to get an army out on the table. So we'll rotate that around a bit. Just as much as possible, we're trying to do this in maybe 1, possibly 2 coats. And you can see the paint is starting to spill over a little bit. What we can do then, just to even that up, is just add paint into the areas that we didn't spill into before. And then when it comes to the later stages, we can then add a brown wash to the whole thing. And if we feel really adventurous, we can then add a little bit of white detailing or more bleached bone detailing as a sort of a highlight to that, to really pick out some of the details on this. So we look around the model, we're just going to go around and see if there's any other pieces that could benefit from a bit of bleached bone. We'll just go around and do the 2 details on the shoulder pad. So we have that tiny little skull, and we have the tooth. So we have the tooth there first. Again, something we can just add a brown wash to at a later stage, just to tie them in a little better, and on that skull as well. And have another little look around. Hopefully we're not going to miss anything on this. It should be okay. So with the bleached bone details down, we're going to do the start of the face as well. So if we close all this stuff down, we're then going to take one of our flesh colours, and we have two flesh colours that we're going to use. We have Vichello's Flat Flesh, which is 955, and Bronzed Flesh, which is 6122 by Games Workshop.